Russian troops had established control over a raised observation position overlooking an active combat sector, a seemingly minor piece of high ground that nevertheless carried enormous tactical value in modern warfare. From this elevated vantage point, Russian spotters could observe a wide stretch of the front line, scanning trenches, tree lines, access roads, and abandoned structures with methodical patience. Using a combination of optical devices, rangefinders, and drone feeds relayed from rear positions, their task was straightforward but unforgiving. Detect movement, identify intent, and direct fire before Ukrainian units could relocate or disappear. In a battlefield dominated by sensors and precision strikes, even a few seconds of exposure could mean destruction. Just a short distance away, a small Ukrainian unit was already preparing to disengage from its current position. The decision to withdraw had been made earlier, based on updated intelligence and shifting frontline priorities. The soldiers moved with urgency but discipline, collecting personal weapons, gathering remaining supplies, and attempting to recover stored ammunition that had been cached nearby for rapid resupply. Every movement was deliberate. Nothing was rushed unnecessarily, but nothing was wasted either. The goal was to fall back to a more defensible line before Russian artillery or drones could lock onto their position. Unfortunately, the withdrawal coincided with a moment of heightened Russian surveillance. From their elevated observation post, Russian spotters noticed subtle but unmistakable signs of activity. Figures moving between cover, disturbed earth, and the brief glint of equipment in the sunlight. Within moments, coordinates were calculated and transmitted to a nearby Russian mortar team positioned several kilometers behind the line. The mortar crew reacted instantly, adjusting their tubes based on the incoming data and preparing to fire. The first round landed close, but not directly on the Ukrainian vehicle. Instead, it detonated near an ammunition cache the soldiers had come to retrieve. The explosion triggered a violent secondary blast as stored rounds cooked off, sending fragments, dirt, and shockwaves across the area. The force of the blast threw several soldiers to the ground and wounded one Ukrainian serviceman, forcing the unit to take immediate cover. Smoke and debris filled the air, temporarily obscuring visibility and adding to the chaos. Despite landing a damaging hit, the Russian mortar strike had failed to eliminate the target completely. Recognizing this, the mortar crew began reloading immediately, intent on delivering a follow-up strike that would finish the job. In many engagements, the second volley is the deadliest, arriving just as survivors begin to move again. But the Ukrainians were already adapting. While part of the unit focused on evacuating the wounded soldier and stabilizing the situation, troops still occupying a nearby trench realized that the enemy's attention was now focused on the withdrawal point. That shift created a fleeting but valuable opportunity. Ukrainian soldiers began carefully observing the likely direction of the incoming fire, searching for signs of the enemy's firing position. What they discovered changed the course of the engagement. Ukrainian reconnaissance operators, using overhead drone footage, spotted something unexpected just beyond the Russian firing position, a forward ammunition staging area. Mortar rounds, explosives, and anti-tank mines had been stacked together in an open field, likely under the assumption that it was safely out of Ukrainian reach. Such staging areas are often temporary, designed to speed up sustained fire missions, but they are also extremely vulnerable if discovered. Confident in their position, the Russian crew continued firing, unaware they were being watched from above. Meanwhile, Ukrainian FPV drone teams finalized their preparations. Without real-time reconnaissance, a strike like this would have been impossible, but now the opportunity was clear and time-sensitive. An FPV drone was launched and guided toward the newly discovered ammunition depot. Using precise directions from the reconnaissance team, the operator lined up the approach, maintaining low altitude to avoid early detection. Seconds later, the drone struck directly into the stockpile. The explosion was devastating. Stored shells detonated instantly, anti-tank mines cooked off in rapid succession, and the vehicle used to transport the ammunition was torn apart. Shockwaves rippled across the area, sending debris flying hundreds of meters and leaving no doubt about the effectiveness of the strike. As the smoke cleared, it became obvious that the Russian crew had lost control of the situation. Midway through their attempted withdrawal, they realized the area was no longer secure. The engagement, however, was far from over. Across the broader battlefield, Russian forces had increasingly shifted away from large-scale armored assaults, instead relying on smaller, more flexible groups to probe Ukrainian defenses. Heavy vehicles were often destroyed before reaching their objectives. Still, occasionally one managed to slip through. In this case, an armored vehicle advanced dangerously close to Ukrainian positions and opened suppressive fire. With trees, debris, and uneven terrain blocking clear lines of sight, the crew fired blindly, hoping that sheer volume would force Ukrainian defenders to retreat. Ukrainian soldiers quickly assessed the danger. With limited time and no immediate fallback fortifications, they chose a quiet and disciplined withdrawal, avoiding unnecessary exposure. Moments later, the Russian crew ceased fire and began repositioning, unaware that they were being tracked. A Ukrainian reconnaissance drone maintained constant visual contact, following the armored vehicle as it moved along a damaged road and eventually pulled into a partially destroyed hangar for cover. Normally, such shelter might have been effective. This time, it was not. Nearby, a Ukrainian brigade specializing in precision drone warfare had a fiber-optic guided FPV drone ready for deployment. Unlike standard FPV drones, this system relied on a physical cable rather than radio signals, providing a clear, uninterrupted video feed immune to electronic jamming. The operator advanced slowly, carefully managing the cable to prevent snags. As the drone circled the vehicle, one critical detail stood out. The crew had left a hatch open. There was no better opportunity. The drone was guided straight through the opening, and moments later, reconnaissance confirmed the vehicle was completely destroyed. But events continued to escalate. Shortly afterward, another armored vehicle was spotted moving through a nearby village that had been almost entirely reduced to rubble. With few places to hide, Ukrainian FPV teams launched standard drones to intercept before the vehicle could find cover. The first strike disabled the vehicle, bringing it to a halt. Even then, the threat was not fully neutralized. A damaged vehicle could still be recovered or repaired. A second drone was sent in. With the vehicle stationary, the operator had ideal conditions for a precise hit. The drone struck again, igniting the vehicle and triggering a final explosion that ensured total destruction. Russian forces continued to rely heavily on multiple launch rocket systems, which remained a significant threat despite years of attrition. Each launcher destroyed represented a major tactical victory. Once Ukrainian intelligence identified a launcher withdrawing after firing, an FPV drone intercepted it mid-movement. The explosion eliminated the system completely. Nearby, another newly deployed MLRS was detected before it could even begin firing. The drone struck first, turning the launcher into a burning wreck without a single rocket being launched. In another sector, a Russian BM-21 Grad moved into position, fired its salvo, and attempted to withdraw. Ukrainian forces reacted quickly. A reconnaissance drone located the launcher within minutes, and coordinates were sent to a Ukrainian strike unit. The missile strike was precise, triggering secondary explosions that reduced the launcher to scrap. Elsewhere, a Russian air defense system attempted to engage a Ukrainian drone. The missile narrowly missed, but the launch revealed the system's position. Ukrainian forces responded immediately. The first strike damaged the system, and the second detonated its ammunition, eliminating it completely. The footage then cut to a close-range engagement in the Lyman direction. A small group of Russian soldiers moved cautiously through the terrain, unaware they were already being tracked. Ukrainian Special Operations Forces from the Whiskey Squad executed a rapid ambush, striking with speed and precision before disappearing back into cover. The final sequence resembled a hunt across open terrain. For Russian infantrymen scattered across a wide, uncovered area, attempting to outrun approaching FPV drones. There was nowhere to hide. Ukrainian pilots from the 414th Magyar's unit tracked their movements calmly and methodically, closing the distance until escape was no longer possible. One by one, the targets were caught in the open, bringing the sequence to a decisive and silent end.